And, you know, it's just like a little pop, 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 pop in the sound. You know, could barely hear. Could he have done it alone? I don't think so. I don't think the man's makeup would have allowed him to do that in the first place. I think there was probably a lot of people involved. Why that never came out is the mystery still. He showed me the picture, and I told him that I'd seen the guy there on the premises. I didn't see him in the ballroom. I saw him out in the lobby area. In fact, I probably saw him several times. He was in and out.
You see him there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now we're doing.
I was playing on a tiny bit.
Oh, that's him, yeah.
Frontal. So do you think that's the same man that you saw in the photograph?
Oh, yeah. That's him. Yeah. They definitely were observing and collecting information.
Okay, I just want you to have a look at this photograph. The two men in the center. This photograph was taken in the ballroom. I just wonder if you saw either of those men that night.
This man here, the bald one,
Yeah.
I think he was talking to Morales at one time.
So you'd be sure then that the man on the left in the photograph was talking to Morales at one time?
I'm almost certain, yeah. Yeah, you've got the military stance, arms behind their back. That's a dead giveaway.
So this is a swing door to the pantry, and we have a small mustachioed man here, and we have our bald man here, seems to be carrying something.
Yeah, there he is.
Is this the same man that you saw there on the night?
Oh, yeah. That's him. Because their central intelligence doesn't make them bad guys automatically. They're out there protecting our country like everyone. By the same token, it doesn't mean they can't have turned bad. Sirhan was probably one of several that were armed and ready to take him. Sirhan was, in my opinion, also a throwaway. He's what we call the shooter in the public's eye. But who the real shooter was, in this level here, you get a professional. And a professional you'll never see, you'll never know, you'll never know anything except that they were there. That's about it. We camouflage firearms in all different kinds of configurations. Sometimes it'd look like a daytimer, purse-like situation. It'd show a zipper on the outside, but it had Velcro, and you could pop it open. You know.
Would they have used a silencer, do you think? So they wouldn't hear the extra shots?
Strongly possible, yeah. The silencers can be made out of all kinds of things, too. Maybe a book or something like that could be inside that, and it could be muffled. You walk up into a busy area like an airport or whatever and stand next to somebody and pop them, boom, boom, and just walk away, you know. As they fall, you're going the other direction. That would have been the proper way to do it, and just disappear. Not get out there like Sirhan did and start shooting his gun. And I mean, that could have been to draw that away from the real shooter. Suspicion? High suspicion. Yes, I can't deny that. Why they were doing the things that they were doing, I'm surprised that was never investigated. After all of these years, you'd think that someone would have noticed these things and done something about them.
And can you say anything about how you knew Gordon Campbell or what you know of him, who he was?
No.
Okay, that's fine. But you have met Gordon Campbell?
I've seen pictures of it.
Okay. Do you know if Campbell's still alive?
To my knowledge, yes.
Do you know where?
No.
David later told me he had seen Campbell several times in the year before the assassination in a police station environment. With Campbell now linked to Morales, I turned my attention to the third man standing next to Campbell in the photograph.
I first met George Joanides in 1977 when I was working at the House Select Committee on Assassinations. Let me just take you back a minute. Here we were, a congressional committee, investigating who might have killed a president back in 1963. As you know, the majority of the American public at the time thought there had been a conspiracy. I had been a law student at Cornell Law School I was a bit of a rebel, and so was Dan Hardway, my partner, looking at these files. We would dress up in cut-off shorts just below our crotch area, and we would show up at the CIA in these outfits.
The man the CIA called out of retirement to act as their liaison to the committee was George Joannides. He never disclosed he worked as Chief of Psychological Warfare Operations at the CIA's Miami base in 1963.
George Joannides was the guy who was supposed to be our point person. He was probably in his mid-50s, a dapper guy, funny and affable. For about 5 or 6 months there, we saw him pretty much almost every day. He might joke with you about a football game or a baseball game or a movie that you'd seen. But when we got down to work, he was all business. What we could see, what we couldn't see, why we could see something, why we couldn't see something, why it was redacted, why it wasn't redacted. I mean, George was the gatekeeper. He was the guy who stonewalled us. They wouldn't give us the photos that they took of people going in and out of the Cuban embassy in Mexico City on the dates that Lee Harvey Oswald was allegedly there. The person who gave us those folders was Fidel Castro. The Lopez report, as has become known over the years, basically concluded there was some type of a relationship between the CIA and Lee Harvey Oswald. Exactly what that relationship was, we could never tell. I have no doubt in my mind that he was being run by someone at the CIA. Was there a connection to the point where they were running the assassination? That we could not confirm.
Oswald spent the summer of 1963 in New Orleans, handing out bills supporting Castro. Here he had a well-publicized confrontation with the CIA-sponsored anti-Castro group called the DRE. Some believe this fight was staged to create a communist legend for Oswald prior to the assassination. After his death in 1990, Jefferson Morley discovered that the CIA case officer for the DRE at the time was George Joannides.
How could we trust anything that the CIA was giving us if the guy that was our point of contact, who controlled what we saw or didn't see, happened to have been a person whom we would have investigated back then had we known who he was? The CIA, I think, placed him in that position because they wanted someone who knew what had been going on back then to control what was made available to us or not made available to us. Was it a risky strategy? The odds of us finding out at the time, given our timeline and the fact that we were just happy to be seeing files, slim to none. In retrospect, now, when we look at it 30 years later just about, what does it look like? Of course it looks fishy.
Let me now show you a photograph that was taken in the Ambassador Hotel the night Robert Kennedy died. And I'd like you to look at the figure on the right center of frame.
Well, when I look at this picture, to me it's a younger George Joannides. I couldn't say 100% that it's him, but if I was a betting man, that I'm 99% sure that it's George Joannides. The guy is young and in shape, always standing, stands erect. It's the way I remember him being. The glasses. His hair is slightly receding. I mean, you just look at him and you say, this is the guy that I spent many hours with at Langley. This is George Joannides. George Joannides is an enigma to me. After he died, when I heard that he'd been involved with JM Wave, that he'd been involved with the DRE, and now looking at this photo, it doesn't surprise me for a minute to find him at the Ambassador Hotel on the day that Bobby Kennedy was shot. If he was the level operative that he appears to have been through DRE and JM Wave, if another operation was going on that was key, he would have been there. These are people who will do anything for the good of their country. And if it meant assassinating a second Kennedy to make sure that he didn't rise to power because he would be dangerous for the country, they do it.
Journalist David Talbot and Jefferson Morley found two others who could identify Joannides. Ed Lopez, investigative partner Dan Hardway, and Chilo Borja, a key figure in the DRE. The Joannides family have refused to comment on the photograph. I also found more photographs of Campbell and Joanides in the ballroom, taken from behind, with a third man I have not been able to identify. I had now identified 3 senior operatives at the hotel with 3 unidentified associates. The man who connects all 3 is the late Ted Shackley, station chief at JM Wave and later Saigon, where Morales and Joanides would again work for him in the late 60s. Above him, the chain of command led right to the top.
Someone else high up would know about it. Would 4 other people know about it? No. But one other person high up would know about it. But that nothing would be written about it, so that it couldn't be traced, because the issue of plausible deniability was paramount of the agency.
Our witnesses leading off today are Mr. Richard Helms, who was the director of the CIA during the period in question.
Well, it was certainly, Senator Huston, a standard operating procedure to give oral instructions. The question of the sensitivity of the matter might have something to do with it. If it was inordinately sensitive, there's every chance that the discussion would have been entirely oral.
Is it policy not to transmit some things in writing?
Sir, when the day comes that in an intelligence organization, particularly a secret intelligence organization, everything has to be put in writing, it's going to come to a resounding halt, I'm afraid.
And if I had to pick one person who would know of this operation, it would be Richard Helms. I had the displeasure of meeting Richard Helms when he was going to be testifying before us. And he was this angry, very crude guy.
So the agent gives the Cuban agent the device to kill somebody.
I'm sorry he didn't give him a pistol, because it would have made the whole thing a lot simpler and less exotic.
Well, whether it's a pistol or a needle, if Amlash is a political plot to destabilize the government, what in the blazes are we giving an agent a device that will kill Castro with for if it's not an assassination plot?
Well, if you want to have it that way, why don't you just have it that way?
He had no respect for what we were doing. He was angry about being where he was. And he had no compunction about letting us know what his feelings were, which sort of blew us away.
Helms initiated the CIA's mind control program in 1953 and was a close colleague of the man who ran it for the next 20 years, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb.
I was dealing here with Mr. Karamessinas and Dr. Gottlieb, both gentlemen and officers that I had known in the agency for many years. I don't know of any more trustworthy individuals in the United States than these 2 individuals, at least based on my long experience with them, patriotic, trustworthy, and loyal. So when we had a discussion about this, this was as good as writing in the letters of blood as far as I was concerned.
But as I built my case against the CIA, I also had to factor in some negative identifications.
Okay, see the figure in the white shirt here? So we see it.
No, this one right here?
Yeah.
No way.
No?
Nuh-uh. No way, that's not him at all. That's not him.
Is there any resemblance at all?
No. Well, that's the same person it was before. No, those are security guards there for Kennedy. And I guarantee you he was no security guard for him. That's not him, I guarantee you it's not him.
I really don't know why Reuben would respond that way. I guess probably when confronted with a photograph, which would be pretty hard evidence, putting him on the spot, may be reluctant to condemn his lifelong friend. He can live with the thought that Morales may have been involved in some way, almost be proud of it, but to ID him may be just too far a reach for him.